Okay, everyone, we're back with another interview, and for this interview, we have Ron. Ron's one of my coworkers, right? Here at Baker Ripley.
Yes.
And he's an interesting fellow because he's been doing computer science for so many years. We've worked on a few projects here at the Fab Lab, and he's just going to tell us a little bit about himself, where he grew up, when he figured out that computer science was for him, and some advice that maybe he can share with our audience. So Ron, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, man, and just about Ron.
Well, when I was born, born in the state of Texas. Originally, I was born in South Carolina.
Okay.
My dad was in the U.S. Air Force at the time. He was away in Vietnam when we wound up living in the valley for a while. And as I got a little older, and I'm talking about, I'm still in my infant years, I actually started living my Texas life in San Antonio.
Okay.
So San Antonio, Dad, after he had returned from Vietnam, he was stationed in Lackland, I believe, Air Force Base.
Okay.
Or Kelly, one of those two. There was two Air Force bases at the time in San Antonio. Now there's only one, I believe. And he was a computer operator.
Okay.
So he did that for a short time, and then after his enlistment was up, we moved to the valley, and that's where I began my toddler, my young first grade through fifth grade and sixth grade, growing up in La Villa, a small little town of about 1,200.
Man, how'd you do it? What'd you do, man?
Nothing. There's nothing to do in La Villa.
Nothing
Except, at least not inside the house, and we didn't have no such thing as the internet back then.
Okay.
So you had your bicycle, your BB gun, and your ability to make slingshots. So you handcrafted your own toys most of the time there.
It's pretty cool, man.
So that's where I get a lot of my craftiness, a lot of my creativity from. And I guess that's why I kind of gravitated back to it, because it kind of always reminded me of my childhood, and it's always a good thing to go back and just reminisce on that stuff. And here at the Maker Lab, I kind of feel like a little kid again, where I'm able to make stuff and come up with things and interact with other kids and things like that. So.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know about this space, this Maker Lab, and kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Which I guess we could go in depth in a later episode.
Absolutely,
and as we continue this podcast, we'll talk more about maybe the Fab Lab, some other topics in tech. But when did you realize that you wanted to do coding, like that was going to be a career?
Oh, when I got interested in the space program back then, as in my youth and my preteen years, very impressionable, and I would follow the Apollo program. It was still going on back then. Remember, I was born around 1970. I don't want to be exact about it, but
okay, yeah. Well, we don't want you to leak that. Okay.
So back then, the Apollo program was coming to an end. It was still very popular. You could still find actual plastic model building kits of the spacecraft.
Okay.
The Apollo program.
Do you still have one or no?
I had one, but no. After so many moves, I lost it.
You lost it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They break, or I broke it or lost some pieces and things like that. I had the actual lunar insertion module,
Okay.
the part of the craft that would orbit the moon.
Gotcha.
And then eventually, separated into the lunar lander and the capsule.
Yeah.
And
so was that like one of the few moments you thought, okay, maybe?
Yeah, that was one of the moments where I actually began getting interested in technology. It wasn't just computers per se, but it was like the whole concept of space and the future, and the excitement involved with it.
Okay.
That's when I kind of wanted to get involved with it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And something led to another. There were computers came into perspective there. I began to gain an interest in it because at the time there was a lot of up and coming video games. Pong was coming out too.
Pong,
I know I'm dating myself. It's pretty old.
Yeah, but I think some of our viewers know what Pong is.
combined with the space program, Pong, and a lot of little exciting things happening in the 70s. The Apple computer was coming out. And of course, that was mid to late 70s, time of Star Wars. And the whole computing technology thing kind of drew me in. It suckered me in.
Okay.
And that's when I decided that's kind of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I mean, even at that young age, most kids at that young age, they have no idea what it is they want to do. And I was always fantasizing. I was always daydreaming, and about science fiction and technology and Star Trek and Star Wars. Star Wars had come out later in the 70s and in 77.
Okay.
Star Wars and New Hope, the very first one that was ever released was right in 77, back when I was like about 8 years old at the time.
Yeah.
So it made quite an impression. And I'm like, everything from talking robots to animated figures on screen, spaceships, computers. Again, the whole theme of computers and technology kept cycling through everything, all my interests.
Okay, and there's something you said right now that really caught my attention, which was, well, most kids don't know what they want to do, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as to why.
Yep.
But before we answer that question, I want to ask you, when you were in high school, what type of things were you doing related to coding that were going to help you, as you transition to college and then as you transition to your career?
Okay, that was one advantage I have over a lot of other kids my age. Typically, I kind of knew what it is I wanted to do. So in high school, I geared my course selection towards technology. And even though I was in high school in the 80s, right, from 84 to 88, so you can probably, do the math to figure out how old I am later. So,
I'm sure someone will, but
oh yeah, I don't care. You figure it out. Keep it to yourself. So, getting back to your question.
Yeah.
I took a class of computer science and was first introduced in my sophomore year in 1985. 1985, we had the Apple IIe. So there was a teacher there that was, and can't remember his name. He was looking for students to fill his class up.
Okay.
And it was primarily going to be for seniors. So I was only a sophomore, but with my deep interest in it, I went over and talked to him. And he proceeded to question me. He interviewed me and things like that, and he kind of tested me on my knowledge of Visual Basic. Of Basic. Visual Basic wasn't around. It was Basic programming. And he said at the time I had already played with a Commodore VIC-20, one of the early Commodore computers that barely could do anything with 5K of RAM.
Okay.
And but I was able to do some things with it. Played games. I knew enough about it where he easily qualified me to be able to take the class.
That's good.
So I was a lone sophomore in a bunch with the rest of seniors.
Wow.
With nothing but seniors in that class, and I did pretty well in that class. I excelled on it. I got an A in the class overall. And one of my projects wound up being used by the high school baseball team to keep baseball stats on our team, on our high school team.
Were they good? Were they any good?
Yeah,
They were pretty good?
they were pretty good.
Did they go all the way?
I don't think they did though, but they were up there. They made close to the playoffs and kind of, that was the end of the season. High school is just
Okay.
it seasons abruptly come to an end.
For
But
sure.
my software did not. So the software kept on being used the following year, the year after that, and
I wonder if they're still using it, or
no,
I wonder.
this
When
this thing was written in Pascal, in Apple Pascal.
I know, but
it would run on a floppy disk, on a floppy drive.
Are you curious though as to when it stopped being used?
Yeah, I never went. Well, sophomore 2 years after I was out, I was in college. I never went back to the high school to figure out if they were still using it.
That's true.
I'm sure by then they probably would have found some third-party software, started implementing it.
Yeah, if not, then you would have been worried, right?
No, I was just glad to have contributed to the high school in any way. Baseball team, the golf team used a design because I was also interested in graphic design back then. So I designed a golf logo, and if you look back at the yearbook, at the 19. I graduated in 1988, right? So if you go back and look at the yearbook, or some of the yearbooks prior to that, you can actually see some of my logos on there for the soccer team, for the golf team. They're on the yearbook pages for the teams, for the team photos.
Okay. And so let's move on to like you go through college, right? You get your degree, and then you start working at. What was your first company that you started working for?
Oh, I first moved to. I had interviewed with Compaq at the time.
Okay.
I almost took a job with Compaq initially, but I wound up working for American General. Yeah, they had like they had a life insurance sub company, and I worked for the retirement services one for VALIC, Variable Annuities Life Insurance Corporation.
Okay. And what they have you doing? You know,
I was working on Visual Basic agent support software.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
for someone that might not know what that is, how would you describe it?
The software was it was a visual tool used to demonstrate to the customers what their investments would grow to. Kind of like it would create projections based on their financial contributions.
Okay, and we
over
see
time.
more of that, right?
Yeah.
Like nowadays.
Now it's commonplace. Now you can even do a lot of that stuff on the web. It's on the cloud. You can actually project a lot of that stuff yourself with a lot of the built-in tools that are almost in every investment firm's website now.
Yeah.
So that's commonplace. So, but back then this was a standalone software. It would run on each agent's laptop,
Okay.
and that was independently set up for the agent's particular state and location. So it would factor in the area's tax bracket, its local and state taxes,
Yeah.
because those would also go into the math that it took to project it. Make a long story short, they had to use their local information to project their local market's investment path, or future financial growth.
Okay.
And
And that's kind of like what your software was accomplishing during that time.
yeah,
Okay. Let me just check something real quick. You heard that sound, right? It's like, okay, it wasn't the machine. So we're good.
yeah, that's the sound I usually hear from the door.
Yeah.
This building is a little bit interesting to listen to at times when you're here alone. You didn't hear it from me.
Yeah. Alrighty, so
That can be a topic for another day.
we'll keep that. Yeah, we will. We will. We'll talk about some stories that happen here. But okay. So then, you start at this company, and we'll go back to the question I told you originally. How can someone, or maybe like a teen or a kid, figure out what they want to do early? Because we've had a conversation where that's super important, right? Like
Yeah, we've had numerous conversations about that. Absolutely.
how that can be life changing for an individual to
Very
figure out what they
impressionable.
want.
Because at that age, they begin to like what we used to call junior high age or middle school age. That's when they're the most impressionable, and they're starting to get interest. They're starting to develop an interest in the things that they may want to do for their future. They're beginning to think about their future, some of them, and they're figuring out what clicks, what doesn't click, what interests them, what doesn't interest them, and once you figure that out, if you can establish that at that age sooner, or you can kind of mold them at that age a lot sooner, they'll be better equipped to kind of tailor their coursework towards through high school, so they can figure out what kind of career tower they want to follow.
Yeah.
A lot of them are realizing that they do like programming, but they don't realize that a lot of what they're doing is actually a form of computer science. And I don't think we've actually done we as a society in general, or the entire education system in this state in particular, I don't think we've actually done enough to drive that out of them at that level, at that stage. Soon, I guess what I'm trying to say is we haven't done enough to get them to find out what their interest is, in particular to in relation to technology. Is it programming? Is it robotics? Is it aviation? Is it medical, biotechnology, chemistry, or is it a math aspect that you're interested in? Or we're not quite doing enough. I think we're emphasizing too much on the testing procedures, structures, how to go about solving the problem, like in one structured way, rather than allowing them to discover their own way of solving the problem. Because it's really how it's going to happen. You're going to encounter a new situation in the real world. This is me, using my experience of, I've been a programmer for 23 years. You're going to encounter a program. There's not going to be no one set formula to solve it. Yeah. Or when the time comes, you're not going to remember that one process that the teacher showed you back when you were, in school. Yeah. So you're going to have to be able to think on your feet and be able to solve that problem on your own based on your general knowledge of technology or anything else for that matter. You can apply it to anything. Okay. You can apply it to medicine, cooking, mechanics, the military, all military situations and problems, biomedicine, anything, pretty much anything, graphics, design, pretty much the whole gamut of stuff.
Yeah. So when you figure that out and you're kind of expressing something that I feel is very important, like school kind of helps you with the basics, right? But then after that, you have to implement that into your own way. You have to find your own path because it's structured,
you have to
right?
Find your path, yes.
And
it's sometimes a little too structured. It's not enough. There's not enough freedom for the individual to decide which direction he wants to approach the problem.
Okay.
What I've seen is they're given they're taught a certain way to do it, and when they're tested, they have to solve it that way, and they have to demonstrate that they solved it that certain way. Hence, they have to show their steps.
Exactly.
Which I never really quite agreed with, because you may arrive at the same answer, you may solve the problem, but you may have done it a different way, and I think that should be acceptable. It should be okay, and then only after you can determine whether or not which was the most efficient technique to solve the problem. But you have to allow the individual to understand the whole problem. Once they internalize it, their problem-solving abilities improve, and that's really what you need out there.
Okay.
You need your creative problem-solving capacity to approach problems, to solve problems.
Yeah, and something that we also talked about is a person changes throughout their lives. Mm-hmm. So when you got out of college, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, from what it seems like, you wanted to go into a career in computer science and work at a company and get that corporate feel, right?
Right.
But then that changed, right? And then you decided to leave that world and try something new, right? And now you're here at the Fab Lab, like you said, going back to something that you loved doing when you were a child, right? Which was more of the creative,
more the spontaneity, more the, hey, we have a new problem. How can we approach this new project?
Exactly. Yeah. Something that you told me was in corporate or in the companies that you would work for. It was very structured, and sometimes your solutions weren't even put out, into the code wasn't even put out into market, or you wouldn't see the results, right?
Right.
Okay. So for people, and something I like to talk about with different interviews is that I think it's okay for individuals to switch or to change throughout their lives. Like there's no one thing that they have to stick to for the next 50 years.
Absolutely.
But see, in our culture, it's not seen as safe, right? Or it's not seen as the right thing to do. I want to know what you think about that.
Well, I've learned a few things about playing it safe. By playing it safe, you're never going to really find out what you are capable of in certain situations, and whether or not you're prepared, those situations will happen. you will change, something will change in your job, some situation, the company will close, you'll have to go find another job. Another job might not suit you or fit you or, you know, be your cup of tea. You have to kind of reinvent yourself. You always have to be able to reinvent yourself.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I think this was a good, interview that we had. We'll talk a little bit more about that as,
Absolutely.
as it progresses. But it was nice having you, Ron.
Hey, man, thank you.
Yeah. So we'll keep in touch. So this has been The Journey. And again, thank you.
Thank you.